Okay, to begin, we are going to log into our Zoom account. Zoom's controls are browser-based. We will get into the Blackboard section of this later in the video, but you can control and set up pretty much everything related to your Zoom account through your Zoom profile, which is accessible at zoom.us. And I will just go ahead and click the sign in button. You will see that my sign-in details are here. The email address should be your cocc.edu email address. The password is unique to this account. If you need to recover your password, you can just click the Forgot Password link on the bottom and it will send you a recovery tool to the email address that you have in the email address field. When we first open up our Zoom account, we should be looking at our Zoom profile. There is a lot of information on this page. We're just going to work through from the top to the bottom, starting with our name. You do want to make sure that it is the display name that you would like to be associated with your account. So if you are accessing this through a device, you probably want to make sure that it says your name and not your iPhone, something like that. And you will see as I move through this page, on the right hand side, there are these little edit buttons. Basically everything in here is customizable, so you can edit your name to whatever it is that you would like to be displayed as, but you should be recognizable as yourself. Second thing is the picture. You can upload an image of yourself, a thumbnail. I have kind of a headshot here. This doesn't have to be your face if you're not comfortable with that. Although I would encourage that. It can also be an avatar, it can be your dog. It just needs to be something that is consistent with your account so that if you do not have your webcam enabled and you are in a group meeting, people can see who you are. It's just a nice add-on to have a face or an image which is consistent and can be associated with you as an individual. Particularly for faculty, when we are trying to create a sense of community and connection with actual people when we are working remotely, having a picture is a big help. Right below that is your personal meeting ID. These are also editable. My personal meeting ID is my office phone number. Your personal meeting ID is a stable and consistent identifier for your individual Zoom account. Think of it as your virtual office. Your office does not move, it stays in the same building, it has the same room number. Same thing goes for your personal meeting ID. So you can very quickly spin up meetings and join meetings just by sending people this join URL, and it will open up a space that is always going to be recognizably yours. I have mine set to be used for instant meetings, so if I have the Zoom client open or if I click up here where it says host a meeting, that is the meeting ID that is used for those meetings. Okay, moving down the page, below the personal meeting ID is a personal link. The personal link is just another customizable URL. Mine just says @kroshow, which is my username. And if I click customize, you can see how that can really be anything. You want it to be, again, recognizable to your students as belonging to you. So this and your personal meeting ID, they open the same place. If I were to put this into another tab and open up a meeting, it would launch with this as the meeting ID. So people can join with the number, they can join with the personal meeting ID link, or they can join with your personal link. The rest of the details on this page are not usually things that you're going to need to actually worry about. The user type should be licensed. If you see that your user type is basic, then you should get in touch with the e-learning department so that we can link your account under our enterprise license. This will allow you to host meetings that are longer than 40 minutes and it expands your meeting capacity. The language, again, you can set the language if you need to. If you are a foreign language class or if you are meeting with users who are primarily speaking another language, you can set that, I believe, to some different things, looks like. The calendar and contact would allow you to integrate your Zoom account into a personal calendar if you were using a Google Calendar, or if you wanted to hook it up to your Outlook Exchange, you could do that. You can also sign yourself out of all devices if you start to lose track of where you're signed into things. And that is essentially your profile. The big takeaway of your profile is your personal meeting ID, which is your virtual personal office. Now, if you are using Zoom to facilitate remote instruction, what I would recommend doing is scheduling meetings, individual meetings for each of your courses. The quickest way to actually go through scheduling a meeting is just to click the schedule a meeting link up here on the top right. And if you'll notice when we click this, it jumps us straight down into the meetings tab over here on the left. To schedule a meeting, you just really need to enter a topic. What I would recommend entering here is something that is distinct to your course. So perhaps I'm teaching communication 218 on Monday and Wednesdays. I want my students to be able to recognize this as the class that they are taking. And then you can fill out all of the details related to when and how your students will join your meeting. So if the meeting is a one-off kind of deal, you can set the date, the time, the duration, the time zone. For recurring courses, what I would do is set a recurring meeting. And again, you can set these recurrence manually, or you can just select no fixed time and the meeting will kind of exist in perpetuity. And then down under meeting ID, you can either have it generate a meeting ID automatically, which is distinct for this recurring meeting, or you can use your personal meeting ID. For course spaces where you want to keep your courses distinct, I would just keep it as the default to generate automatically. That way you don't get any wires crossed and you don't have people joining a meeting that you don't mean for them to join or getting confused. You have the option to require a password. I would probably leave that alone, and then your video and audio options are editable here. Again, I would leave those be. The defaults are fine. I will note for audio, the option is set to both, meaning that students can call in with a telephone if they do not have a reliable audio source, or they can use computer audio. Computer audio is also functionally device audio if they're using an iPad or a tablet phone, something like that. The meeting options are editable as well. The join before host, this one is a little tricky, and I will spend a minute talking about it because you can click this button, and what it will allow users to do is join the meeting before you as the host are technically in the room. That can be helpful if you are a little bit late or if they are a little bit early. However, it complicates the recording processes because if you have your meetings set to record automatically, which you'll see is the option down here, it starts recording anytime anyone opens the meeting room. So if you have people who are testing the Zoom connection, if they are joining way ahead in advance and they just want it running on their phone or something, you're going to have a lot of recordings which may or may not be relevant to your actual instruction. So use your discretion there. If you feel like that would be a barrier of entry to your students, maybe you have enabled join before host. If you don't want to wade through what could be messy recordings, I would leave that unchecked. Mute participants upon entry, probably a good idea, but not necessary. Again, all of this stuff can be changed inside the meeting room itself, so nothing's really permanent, but you can set it so that people's microphones are muted by default. The waiting room, I'm going to deselect this because it is a course space where I want all of my students to be able to join together. If you are setting up a meeting for office hours or advising, or a meeting where you want to be having confidential conversations with someone, then enabling the waiting room allows people to join your meeting and they get the confirmation that they are in the right spot, but they can only hear or see you when you allow them to come in the room. And this is very easy to see how to do it in the meeting space, so don't worry about that. It will be very obvious if this is enabled. However, for general class discussion type stuff, I would just leave that open. The last option is to record the meeting automatically. If you have the intention of posting your Zoom recordings to your course space to be viewed at a later date, I would absolutely set this to record. And you have two options as to where those recordings go. You can record to the local computer, which will put a video file on your home computers or wherever it is that you are actually doing the recordings. If you select recording in the cloud, audio transcripts will be generated automatically when the recording is processed. Full disclosure, most of the world is using Zoom right now. Video recording processing is taking longer than it normally would. Usually it's around 2 to 10 hours. Right now we're looking more like 24 to 36 hours for these recordings to become available. So full disclosure with that one. However, I'd still recommend it because it is the easiest way to get these things out to students, and it can be all managed within your account here as well. The alternative hosts, this is where you can set alternative hosts. So things like your co-instructors, if you are teaching with multiple other people. Participants and hosts have most of the same features related to sharing and things of that nature. However, hosts can do some user management stuff, which may be useful to have another person kind of moderating. So if you are wanting to teach with someone, or if you have a TA, then alternative hosts, you can set them up in here. If I click save, then it takes me into my meeting confirmation area. Essentially, this is just showing me what I have just set up. I can start the meeting if I want to start it right away. I can add it to my calendar. I can share my meeting ID. Again, you'll see the meeting ID here is a 9-digit code that is the same 9 digits at the end of the invite URL. And we have all of our meeting options displayed below as well. So confirmation of our choices on the previous page. If you decide you want to change anything, the edit button is right here. And last but not least, you can set up polling ahead of time. You can also do this within the meeting. It is easier if you do it in advance. And live streaming, which I have not myself experimented with, but if you are comfortable or familiar with using YouTube and you would like to play with that, that option exists. So that is scheduling a meeting. And if I go back into my meetings tab, what I will actually see is a list of all of the meetings that I have created. So if I were teaching in spring term and I had 4 classes, probably best to have 4 meetings, and they would just show up like this. Recurring meeting, here's a link to the topic. Again, if I click that, it just takes me back into my kind of details management place. The meeting ID, and then I have the ability to start or delete it if I need to. Also on the left-hand side of the page is where you can find recordings. These will show up after the fact. However, once you get into this space, this is where you can access the link to share these meetings with your users. So you can just click the share button and you'll have your options, and you can copy the meeting link and everything right here. And if you click the link of the topic, it will take you again to kind of a similar place. Let me just copy this shareable link and I will paste it up here so you can see what it looks like if someone were to visit a link that you made to your cloud recording. So here's my video. It's about an hour long. I have audio transcripts enabled by default for every user with a COCC license, so these should also appear with your meeting. It also records the chat. So if you have the chat open and people are asking questions, or if you have users who do not have audio available, they can access everything through the chat. And then the transcript should play along with, let's see, yeah. So what will happen is it will highlight as users come in here and talk. And if something's really wrong, you can edit your transcripts. They're pretty decent. As long as you have a decent microphone and you are enunciating, these come through pretty well. So that is what it looks like when you share a Zoom cloud recording to users. This is pretty much what they're going to see. Let's go back to our profile. I'm going to grab my personal meeting ID in this case, and I'm just going to right-click copy. This is a web link that acts like a web link and can be used like a web link in so much as you can put it anywhere that you would normally be able to make a web link accessible to users. So that's your Blackboard course, email, personal website, if that's what you're using, whatever, it's a web link. If I come into Blackboard and I want to make this accessible to students within my course, I can just open up any class space. So I can come in here, I can select web link, I can call it Monday, Wednesday, Zoom, and paste my URL. I want to make that available to users. Click submit. It goes down to the bottom of the list. I will drag it up to the top. And if I select this, it's going to prompt me to open up Zoom. And it will open my meeting, which I am not going to do at this exact second. As an instructor, you can also access the Zoom LTI. This is a more integrated version of your Zoom account within Blackboard. I will come up again to my navigation builder here, I will select tool link this time, and if I scroll down, you will see the option for Zoom meetings here. And you can also give your, give it a name, make it available. This looks a little bit different. So this is a more universal Zoom controller space. If I click on this, it's going to say it's launching the LTI. So this area, you'll see, looks very similar to the meetings area in your Zoom like web-based browser account. So I'm in here, upcoming meetings, previous, etc. You can also set up your meetings in here if you don't even want to bother with using the Zoom profile page. So you can just schedule a meeting. It will automatically come through with the topic of your course name. You can set up all of the same things related to recurrence, duration, and most of the meeting settings that you would normally have. I'm going to record the meeting, same thing, record in the cloud, and if I save it, it confirms in the same way. Come back to course meetings, and here is my sample course. So if I were to come into the same class with student preview mode on, I can click the Zoom meeting link, and it's going to be very similar. They have less options than you do as the faculty. You'll notice that it says join instead of start, but they still have the meetings and the instances that have been scheduled. They can access the cloud recordings if there were any in here, and they can see the list of previous meetings as well. So that is kind of what it looks like from the student perspective. So that is the basics of using Zoom. That is how to set up things within your Zoom profile, and also how to create and link to meetings from within your Blackboard course.